for Hansuni, a dancing with the basis of Mokosonsa, because I do all the latest nabros and be keep updated. Niema air coso elections mono, no one a de one updated air bremo. Enra, any beto just say, recollation no. A year legal one, our court, high court, pencil say, senior no, and run on the share so, just any name who outcome be free by. 9 Constituency yen declare no enra timi bomodin declare mo 7 emma a year NPP for the remaining 2 the hinyan ho adwuma because you see pin sheet no ho abasan kakra but the timi kan bibia recollation the mu 7 ni nyina no yesi de ni nyina ma NPP for enye wawa said the other 2 no so no odini nyina beka ho na enne Sabranso speaking on NDC for any abre papa money abre and omo person dominance from na kwan bia so isi ade a wayi say the constituency be bi omo to abaye kenkan aba eye coalition no itimi declare seat ahodo ni bi ema NDC for na isi timikas won tiase na itimi kwotena baby yefa result ni free sa constituency no ton kwa Akra say ho ne enko recollation bin sida na ya kwa ko declare ma NPP for and NDC for say kwan bia so no sit na ya flip it ama NPP for no they will flip it back be reverse it dintia omotima bomodin akwa ko hu some forge and as a fabricated pin sheet bia there is no signature of the agent EC one BBN ho just somebody account numbers or figures also are in favor of NPP no waiting the account at declare results including good things in
the first declaration it was done using the results of 146 polling stations, which means there were 2 left.
Yes.
Is there a chance that now that the 2 have been added, that the results could have been flipped?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Let
me answer that.
Okay.
Yes. These 2 pink sheets were fabricated. The contents of the originals with the EC officers were markedly different from the contents of the duplicates that were originally given at the polling stations after the close of poll. The originals now bears names, signatures, year of election, time that the polls closed. The duplicates did not. Figures were different. So if you don't resist such a forged document, it will go against you. As a trained lawyer, I cannot accept that. It's a fabricated evidence. The evidence is not credible. All right? But the NPP insists that should be added. The NDC insists that should be added in favor of the NPP. The figures only favor the NPP candidate. That is why today they claim that they're beating her by 55 votes. When the mandate declaration put her around 240 something votes.
241 above.
Thank them. You understand? So but for those 2 fabricated pink sheets, she's in the clear.
And you notice the fabrication on the first declaration or collation because the dates and numbers were not the same as the original.
You see, a duplicate must be a replica of the original.
Yes.
So where you have an original, the content of which are not reflected on your duplicate, then there's a fabrication.
Okay, so what I'm trying to understand
explain.
is...
So to the extent that we compelled Ofusuhini, the Metro Director, to invite one of his presiding officers, their co-presiding officers, in respect of one of those pink sheets to come. When he came, the man came to admit that, oh yes, I completed these pink sheets in the office after the close of polls. 2 of them. After the close of polls. Why? Because when we closed at 5 and we did the tabulations and announced the results, we were tired. So when I came to the office that I was reminded to complete the pink sheets. That story is also another concussion, because clearly they have sat down to fabricate a pink sheet and insert figures that will favor the NPP candidate.
I dare say.
Okay.
Let me use the
I'll come back to you. Let me hear AB out.
Okay.
Let me use the opportunity to point out that interestingly, there was no name and signature or anything like that on our pink sheets.
On the duplicates.
On the duplicates. So therefore, you have no way of even proving that that was the
original.
The officer in the first place. Now you've produced an officer who comes with an excuse. But we're not obliged to accept that because we don't even know where those sheets came from that you've given us. Okay? So, and that happened in three places. And for those two, this were the excuses. So we refuse to admit, those two.
In fact,
and
originally, there were 18.
There were 18.
So we were some totals were not done. So we agreed that okay, this was
some of them
they are
the
not
figures
material.
didn't match, but they weren't different from the originals that they had.
Okay.
So we'll discuss and reach a consensus. But on these two, it was obvious that the fabrication was just too real. And then there's an admission that these were completed without representation, without our agents. Not to talk of the fact that on these two sheets even, we could not authenticate that these were our agents' signatures. So these were very real issues that we weren't going to agree to. But in our case, all our pink sheets were considered. All from the 148 were considered. 2 were rejected based on these reasons after we had conceded on 16. Okay, but the interesting thing about fabrications and stuff like that is done to favor a certain candidate. So when you try to foist it, when you ask, will it affect the result? Of course it will. And we're very sure that this was done extensively. But if they've done a clean job, then you really have no way of saying for sure that this is what happened.
Right.
But for these two, there's no way around it. They didn't pass muster under any logical,
right. And today
explanation.
You didn't even have the chance also today to raise those objections because
no, we didn't. And that's the interesting thing. If you look at these most of these seats that are being flipped, it is where they have departed from the norm of collation. So, for example, in my seat and Baba Sadiq's seat, for as examples, the returning officers refused to partake in this process or were prevented from partaking in this process. So, for example, Tema Central, that was one of the main issues with the first collation. But we agreed if the Metro Director decided that he was the senior officer and decided to relieve the returning officer of his duty to collate and declare, no problem. So he got the returning officer sat there quietly without any involvement in the process and took charge of the process. After which, under supposed duress, you appointed someone else to declare the results on your behalf. Now, these were all decisions that you made. And I'm saying if there was duress, we would have forced you to declare the results. In any case, today, after he himself had complained, and one of the trending issues with Tema Central was that the person who handled the process and did the declaration was not the returning officer. So today I said on my first condition, before my lawyer starts to speak about whether the court order is being, complied with or not, is that the returning officer whose duty it is to manage the process must be in charge. If you notice in the case of Akroma North, that is why he was able to express the decision that without the parties' participation, he was not going to go ahead with collation. These are the rights of the returning officer. Now again, this same person who contrived the first situation is sitting in the chair and making the decision that he is going to handle the process today. And we said, but what happens to your RO who is present here? Why don't you stay out of the process and allow the RO to do his job? And this he refused to do. And that's one of the issues that we were arguing about. I'm sure that your cameras captured that. And then the issues that my lawyer has raised after. Interestingly, I think that immediately we left, we hear, and we watched on TV as well, the RO for Tema Central also, just like Akroma North did,
had threats from
indicated that he had threats on his family and his children and all of that from the NPP. And so he was going to recuse
himself
from the process.
Also because we were not there.
Also because we were not there. But bear in mind, this guy is being sat and prevented from doing his job from day one. I think that my colleague Baba Sadiq has, a similar issue.
Indeed, he does.
In addition to the outstanding pink sheets.
Indeed. In a bit, we'll go to Alfred, and Alfred will take on that conversation with Baba Sadiq. Baba Sadiq is here with us in the studio. Remember that in the original declaration, Baba Sadiq was declared winner of the Okankwe Central contest. However, in today's declaration, he's lost that seat to the incumbent Patrick Boama. Alfred.
Well, that's exactly what has happened now. In fact, the earlier declaration had Baba Sadiq polling a little over 15,400 votes thereabout. And then the incumbent MP Patrick Boama trailing with some 14,900 votes and over. That was without the 31 polling stations. And this Okankwe Central Constituency we're talking about has 141 polling stations. That declaration earlier was done with 110 polling station results. Now, there's been some explanation as to why the 31 polling station results were not added to the previous declaration. And the man to speak to it is here with us. Baba Sadiq, it's good to have you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So per the declaration we are seeing right now, 21,099 in favor of Patrick Boama and 19,368 for you.
Yes.
Now, this is within 31 polling station results that were earlier contested. Why was it not added in the first instance?
In fact, I mean, on the day when we met last week, we noticed that when we did the entire polling station by polling station, we noticed that some of the polling stations, they had swapped our figures with that of the NPP candidates.
They swapped the figures?
They swapped it. So you take a pink sheet, you realize that every other detail on the pink sheet is right, but when you get to the actual, where the number and the words are, you will notice that where we are truly gotten a bigger number, that is given to the NPP candidate, and then his less number is given to us. And that was strange. So last week when we sat and we're doing the collation, we began to notice these things. And by the time we're done, we had noticed about 31 of the polling stations where such things had happened.
They swapped your
Where
results?
they swapped our results with his result. So in a particular polling station, for instance, where we got 266 and then he had 192, they gave the 192 to on their pink sheet. They gave the 192 to us and gave the 266 to him. But on our pink sheet, we had the 266 and then he had the 192. So our argument to them was that, look, we don't manufacture these pink sheets. These pink sheets are copies of what you give to us. And so if you've given us pink sheets, and they looked at the pink sheet, they examined it. There was nothing wrong with that particular
pink
the pink sheet that we had. Now, the 31 pink sheets that we have, if you collate the numbers that we have, the ones that we have, we would have been leading Patrick, we would have gotten our 52.92% of the total vote that has been casted. But when you switch the figures, which is consistent with the pink sheets they're working with today, then you would have the figure that is having today, which is again even different from what he had projected. This is about a third or fourth figure that from what he had projected that he had won. This is totally even different.
I see.
And so that was the point that we're making to them. Today when we got there, the first thing we checked was realized that the returning officers had declined to be part of it. If you look at what was happening.
So Okankwe Central returning
the same thing
was not
part of it. So then they had said that there was a deputy returning officer. Then we questioned, what shows that he has an authority or mandate to actually be the returning officer, because the original returning officer should be the one actually returning this particular election results as well. Then they explained that this morning, today, he had been appointed as returning officer. Then I demanded from the original returning officer that what shows that he's actually been appointed. They said they have a letter. They want to show it to us. I said, no, I need a copy of it. So in actual fact, my first condition was that before that proceeds, in actual fact, they need to produce a letter indicating that this person is mandated and authorized to actually continue with the
Did you ever get the letter?
They didn't. She just showed it to us. I said, no, I cannot take what is actually on the phone. You need to give us a copy. Then the second aspect of it was that, well, by the time we had gotten there, they had started and said that they are through with about 24 of it. Then we started to raise the objections to it. Then one of the officers came in, and senior officers, the deputy regional officer who had come in with what they call it, a finger marking this morning, who had come in with him, said that, okay, well,
abusuafo we di ankasa asoma niema ekoso recollection center na ye pin free various constituencies no ton aba Accra achese enkran for Accra for ni bi nkrofo bi MP samomo no niema hodo ekoso ho no na achese ye buruburu su bi amamo na nyina etie ebi bright achese ye NDC PC a ni Chrome anase ni constituent for 2 aba no achese aba bontin abekasa aden ECC when we need Accra number recollation no when we need ni competitor NPP ni mum na we after recollation, but mind you during the recollation and ekoso no ebi bright in the case no onwa busa EC presiding officers and crofo ho say adia muyi how can somebody cover forged to a pin sheet and as a fabricated pin sheet because pin sheet are modiaba no enye legal enyo original enyo authentic obisa question na enya answer papa biama no actions are no mu take wo ho bia no enye papa enye ne kwan so oni da fiamapo ifre eye recollation center o omuntimi ntinem ema munchinchi mamonsa ema munya de ensemfata they raise questions still na no say de ombeya na be kwan bia so bema NPP for no mu di city ni nyina be momo raising GM 2/3 na wanya in parliament no mo pesa moteso mo pesa 2/3 na yeden efri ninsa raising ni nyina no na oma hu sa nintino omo free recollation center because the cost na time ucheche muchi obia nyansa ba kukureni omo free ho as an EC presiding officer nyansa I say about him say results here could declare one side of the party on tiase about a recollation and abesa wajuma bedding one side of the party on tiase the opposite the so yana say we suspended because in this case two a year recollation numbers no back on NDC piece near den if you say Emma EC officer nikaze other party if you say intino won't mean declare result so who as an EC also the same entity and as a training at the no actions that are taken as also so bad or suspend the result no also so when fee you move on to declare results say the amount for a cano a yomo constituency one those results no and no more fine na de ye no Accra na agent bia ensign only the part NPP part agent no onumom na assign EC presiding officer na assign the other space na was in this agent na assign oni ho peace ni susu ni ho te ede na a result na wo ba be declare a authentic a legal I was say the other side ni jitum na Ghana fo nyina jitum it's not going to work so they just move on out omu pay ya my ye bibia forge a fabricated a pin sheet no marking kind nyina ka ho awa be kan say on mum na lucy na peso jitum after you marking pia bonte be kan say it was they must accept the result in good faith like how wow nim say a ball chrono now when paned nim na ball chrono onye ho hwe na nipa na obo chrono mu ba kwa be kan say accept it in good faith like how by force I didn't accept it so they just move out and they are saying say 7 January no a crime will they will make sure say the right thing will be done. They will make sure say the right thing will be done. The same thing other constituencies now ye declare no flip seat now ye declare my NPP for no it will be brief for now I can say the same thing happen and they will make sure say sit now and I say the way of the Ghanaian and I say Ghana is MP those constituent now then at Abaman do make sure so no never be MP and by force is in MPP for agenda no ma quote a dem a cookino and number 4 on Ghanaians they be omonti asiada This is the time I was said the wrongs must be corrected. Resetting no in economy nkwa. Resetting Fabṛicatéd the institutions, the economy, finance, BBR, and yeah, economy nkwa resetting. So building the Ghana that we want, you don't want that Jimensa antis ne tactics no. Sanya man time and my democracy in Koso. So Babesia drink Ghana for honor or party na dream. Sanya money are there was here stopping. We can't appoint EC a chairperson. No nimno impono.